He thought she was just another weak black girl in his karate class, so he choked her out in front of everyone, for fun. But what happened next? Let's just say, he wasn't laughing for long. The smell of sweat and rubber mats hung in the air. The dojo buzzed, with voices students, stretching, chatting, snapping belts into place. But in the center of the room, the mood was different. The tension was thick. All eyes were on one pair. Ready, said Sensei Troy. Stepping back in front of him stood Imani Daniels, 23 years old, quiet, new to this dojo. She wore a plain white GI with a brown belt, her long braids tied neatly behind her back. She bowed respectfully. Across from her stood Aaron Bentley, -6'2", all muscle, with a black belt tied high and proud. He cracked his knuckles and grinned at the watching students. "This won't take long," he muttered, just loud enough for Imani to hear. She didn't respond. "Fight," the instructor called. Aaron charged like he always did. Fast, showy, loud. He aimed a sweeping leg kick that sliced through the air toward her left shin. Imani dodged effortlessly. A few heads turned. She hadn't even blinked. Aaron came at her again, this time throwing a fake jab, then lunging with a spinning back fist. She ducked, rolled, glided sideways like smoke. "Come on," he growled. "Stand still." A few of the teenage students giggled. Aaron didn't like that. He rushed again, this time with no technique, just frustration. He grabbed Imani by the GI and slammed his forearm across her chest. She staggered back. Then, without warning, he wrapped his thick arm round her neck and locked in a rear chokehold. Tight gasps echoed across the room. "That's not even allowed," someone whispered. Sensei yelled another, but Troy stayed silent. His arms were folded, eyes narrowed, watching closely. "Tap," Aaron hissed into Imani's ear. "Or nap." Imani didn't move. Her body tensed for a moment, but her eyes stayed calm. Her fingers flexed near her waist. Her knees bent slightly. Then, in a blur, she dropped to one knee, twisted her hips, and launched Aaron over her back. He hit the mat with a sickening thud. Everyone gasped. Aaron's black belt came undone and slid across the floor like a ribbon. He groaned, trying to sit up, but Imani was already standing above him. Her foot landed gently but firmly on his chest. "I tapped," he wheezed. "I didn't hear it," she said quietly. Her voice was soft, but not weak, controlled. The dojo went silent. Even the assistant instructors stared, wide-eyed. Imani stepped back and bowed, not to Aaron, but to the room. Then she turned and walked toward the locker room, ignoring the stares, the whispers, the dozens of phones that had just recorded what happened. Aaron sat up, red-faced and breathing hard. "She cheated," he muttered. "That was illegal. You started it," one of the kids said under their breath. Aaron glared, but nobody defended him as Imani disappeared through the door. One of the girls, Naomi, a green belt, turned to her friend and whispered, "Who is she?" No one answered, but in a quiet corner of the room, Sensei Troy pulled out his phone and opened a file. Imani Daniels, transfer from East Bay Dojo, former state champion, 2018, advanced black belt 4th. Dan retired due to personal reasons. He stared at the screen, then looked at the door she had just walked through. "She's not here to learn," he said under his breath. "She's here for something else." The locker room was cold, not from the air conditioning, but from the silence that followed her. Imani stood in front of the mirror, her breathing steady eyes locked on her reflection. She untied her brown belt and set it gently on the bench, staring at it like it had lied to her, Because it had dot, it wasn't her belt. Not really. She opened her duffel bag slowly, reached into the bottom, and pulled out a bundle wrapped in cloth. As the folds unrolled, a worn black belt revealed itself. The edges were frayed, the fabric thin from years of war on the mat. Fourth, Dan. She hadn't worn it in 3 years. Not since that night. Her hand trembled for a moment as she held it up. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind. Strength isn't how hard you hit. It's how long you can stay calm in the face of disrespect. She had broken that rule today. She had wanted to embarrass Aaron, and she had. But deep inside, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like unfinished business, Imani. She spun around, fast ready to fight. But it was just Naomi, the greenbelt girl. She stepped inside, holding her gear awkwardly, eyes big like a puppy. "Sorry, Naomi," said quickly. I had to ask. That throw you did. That wasn't brown belt stuff." Imani looked down. "I got lucky." "No, you didn't," Naomi said, stepping closer. "You're better than this whole place." Imani didn't answer. She began to change, pulling on her hoodie and shoving her gear into her bag. "Why do you hide it?" Naomi whispered. That made Imani stop. Naomi lowered her voice. "I saw your name on the tournament wall. You used to compete. You won everything." "What happened?" Imani zipped the bag shut. "Life happened." She turned and started to leave. But Naomi's voice froze her mid-step. "They're saying you embarrassed him on purpose. Aaron, they're mad." Imani turned slowly. Let them be. Outside the locker room, tension was already building. Aaron had retied his belt too tight. His ego had turned the shade of a bruise. And now, surrounded by a few of his loyal students, he was pacing. "She caught me off guard," he said loudly. "She's not even supposed to be sparring." One of the instructors tried to calm him. "Aaron, it was just training." "That wasn't training," he snapped. "She came here to make a point." Brad, a lanky assistant black belt, crossed his arms. "If she wants to act like a black belt, maybe she should be treated like one." Aaron's eyes gleamed. Exactly. The next day, the dojo was tense. Walked in with her hoodie up, head down, ignoring the stares. Naomi waved at her nervously, but Imani didn't wave back. She was focused. She had a feeling something was coming. Sensei Troy stood at the front of the mat, unusually silent. He looked like he had something to say. But before he could speak, Aaron stepped forward. "I want a rematch," he said. The room went dead quiet. Imani looked up. Sensei Troy raised an eyebrow. "That's not necessary. She humiliated me," Aaron said. "I deserve a fair match. Full contact." The room murmured. Imani stepped onto the mat slowly. "You sure you want that?" Aaron's grin was sharp. "Oh, I'm sure." Troy sighed. "Fine. 5-point match. No cheap shots." Imani removed her hoodie, her GI already underneath. But this time, she reached into her bag and pulled out the black belt. The real one. The room gasped. Naomi smiled wide. "Oh, now it's real." Aaron's smirk faltered, but just for a second. They bowed. The match began. Aaron came hard. Like last time, but this time Imani didn't dodge. She blocked, struck, slid in under his guard and landed. A clean elbow to his ribs. 1-0. He grunted and rushed again. She faked left, pivoted right, swept his leg, and sent him down. 2-0. The dojo erupted in gasps. He stood, angrier now, his face flushed. He threw a jab, then a hook, then tried to fake a roundhouse, but Imani caught his leg in midair and flipped him. 3-0. He slammed the mat. You think you're better than me? She didn't answer. He charged blindly, swinging wildly. She ducked, stepped in, and tapped the side of his neck with 2 fingers. Clean strike. 4-0. 1 more point. Aaron screamed and rushed again, but this time his punch landed. A hard one, right to her jaw. She staggered. The crowd gasped. That wasn't supposed to happen. Imani blinked, shook her head, then looked up and smiled. Aaron froze. Imani stepped in, twisted his arm, flipped him again, harder this time, and landed her knee on his chest. Holding him in place, her palm hovered an inch from his throat. I win, she said. 5-0. He was too winded to speak, too humiliated to stand. And this time he did scream, not from pain, from ego, from fear, from knowing she never even tried to hurt him and still destroyed him. The dojo was silent as Aaron limped off the mat, his pride in pieces. He didn't speak, couldn't. The room watched Imani, wide-eyed, but she didn't bask in the attention. She walked straight past them, picked up her bag and left the room. No cheers, no gloating, just quiet. Because this wasn't about a win, this was about release. Outside, the air felt different, like it hadn't touched her skin in years. Imani sat on the curb out front, hands in her lap. The black belt sat loosely around her waist now. It didn't feel like armor anymore. It felt like memory. She was so lost in thought that she didn't hear Naomi until the girl sat right beside her. You okay? Imani chuckled softly. I should ask you that. You're the one who just watched your class hero get folded like laundry. Naomi grinned. He deserved it. They sat in silence a moment, the evening breeze dancing around them. Naomi finally asked the question she had been holding back for days. Why'd you stop? Imani stared forward. You ever lose something you thought you'd never lose? Naomi nodded slowly. My mum, 2 years ago. Breast cancer. Imani's eyes softened. Then you'll understand. She leaned back on her palms. I used to live for this. Martial arts. I trained every day, competed in every state tournament. I wasn't just good, I was scary good. But I never fought to win trophies. I fought because it reminded me of my father. Naomi's head tilted. He trained you. No, Imani whispered. He died saving someone. Naomi blinked. Car flipped on the freeway. He pulled a stranger out of it, but got hit by another car. He didn't make it. I was 9. I couldn't protect him. Couldn't even scream loud enough. Imani's jaw tightened. So I started fighting. Not people. Fear. Helplessness. Pain. Every punch I threw was at something I couldn't name. Naomi stayed quiet. Imani continued. I started winning. I got noticed. Sponsors, scholarships, national tournaments. But when people see a black girl with talent, they don't always cheer. They test you. Her fingers curled slightly, like she could still feel the mat under them. There was this elite dojo I was invited to. Top of the line, all white belts except me. I was the guest, the token. They didn't say it, but I knew it. Naomi frowned. They were racist. They were cowards, Imani replied. But one of them, he was worse. Imani stared into the dusk, her voice hollow now. His name was Craig, 3rd-degree black belt. Everyone worshipped him. He said he wanted to spar, but it wasn't sparring. He tried to humiliate me, yanked my GI open in front of everyone, said if I wanted to be in his house, I had to earn it like a man. Naomi gasped. What did you do? Imani's voice turned to ice. I broke his nose. In 3 places. Naomi's jaw dropped. Good. Imani didn't smile. They banned me, she said quietly. Called it assault. Said I lost control. My sponsors dropped me. The media twisted it. Aggressive black athlete lashes out in dojo attack. My scholarship vanished. I got hate mail. But you were the victim. No one cared, Imani said, because I fought back. Silence lingered. Naomi blinked hard. So you walked away? Imani nodded. I didn't just walk away. I erased myself. I boxed up my belts, deleted the videos, stopped training. I didn't even go near a dojo until I saw this one. Naomi looked confused. Why come here? Imani looked up at the sky, then down at her own hands. I thought maybe I could just exist here, be normal, not the star, not the threat, just a student. Naomi's voice was small, and now Imani smiled faintly. Now I know running from it didn't heal me. Facing it might. Just then, the door creaked behind them. Sensei Troy stepped out, hands in his pockets. You always were better than that belt, he said. Imani stood slowly. I didn't mean to disrupt your class. You didn't, he said gently. You reminded it what real power looks like. She looked at him, surprised. I remember your name, Imani Reed. National finals. You were a storm in braids and black tape. My students looked up to you. Still do. She laughed softly. Eren didn't. He was never a student, Troy said, stern. He was a cautionary tale. I should have intervened sooner. Naomi stood beside Imani. So, is she back? Imani raised an eyebrow. Sensei Troy smiled. If she wants to be. Imani didn't answer right away. Her hand touched the belt tied around her waist. This time, she didn't feel shame. She felt heat. Pride, resolve. I'm not here to be the best anymore, she said. I'm here to teach the best. Troy chuckled. Then let's get you an instructor gi. Naomi beamed. You're staying. Imani grinned. I think I've got more to give than I thought. But deep inside, she knew something else. Craig, the man who destroyed her past, had just been released on parole, and he wasn't done with her. Not yet. The dojo buzzed with new energy since the Eren incident. The place had changed. Students trained harder. They asked better questions. And when Imani walked in each afternoon, they stood straighter, not out of fear, out of respect. Sensei Troy had made it official. Imani Reed was now the assistant instructor for all advanced students. But even the beginners kept sneaking glances during her warm-ups, like they were watching a legend in motion. And maybe they were. She was teaching again. Flow drills, timing counters, high-speed combinations. But her favorite lessons were the quiet ones. How you move, she'd tell them, shows how you feel. So if your heart's not steady, neither are your hands. The students soaked it up, especially Naomi. That girl followed her like a shadow, but today had felt off. The sky had turned grey by mid. Wind gusted against the windows as they trained. A storm was building. But it wasn't just in the sky. It was in her chest. As class ended, Sensei Troy stepped outside to take a phone call, and Imani stayed behind to help a young boy adjust his footwork. That's when the door creaked open, and he walked in. Craig. Same cold, blue eyes. Same smug twist in his lips. Only this time, he wore a polished black belt and a crisp GI that looked like it hadn't been touched by real sweat in years. He took his time, scanning the room like he owned it. Imani froze mid-step. The boy tugged. Her sleeve, Miss Reed. But she didn't move. Her breath locked inside her. Craig finally looked at her and smiled. Been a long time, Red. His voice was gravel and arrogance. Naomi, packing up her gear, looked over, then looked at Imani. Her eyes widened. You okay? She mouthed. Imani didn't answer. Craig walked slowly onto the mat, shoes still on, tracking dirt across the pristine floor. No hug for an old friend. Imani stepped forward, her voice ice cold. You need to leave. Now. He grinned wider. Relax. I'm here to observe. Just got out. Figured I'd drop by, see how the fallen star was doing. Nice place. Naomi started toward him. You're not welcome. Imani lifted a hand, stopping her. She kept her eyes locked on Craig. You don't get to walk in here. Not after what you did. Oh please, he laughed. You broke my nose. I'm the victim, remember? You were the one who couldn't control her temper. Imani stepped closer, closing the distance. The court saw through you. That's why you went down. Assault, harassment, and obstruction. Craig's voice dropped, quiet but venomous. And yet, here we are. You, teaching kids in a strip mall. Dojo, me, free as the wind. Naomi balled her fists. Want me to call the police? Imani's voice turned steel. No. She stepped onto the mat fully, untying her belt. Get on the mat, Craig. You're here for something. Let's finish. What you started. Craig laughed. You want to fight me here? In front of your students? Not for revenge, she said. For proof that this time, when you fall, everyone sees it. He looked amused. Fine, let's dance. Naomi quickly cleared the younger students from the edge. The other instructors paused, unsure. But Sensei Troy re-entered just in time. What the hell is this? He barked. Imani didn't even glance his way. Controlled sparring match. 2 minutes. No contact to the face. Craig's request. Craig smirked. You always were the rule book. Type Imani said nothing. She just bowed, and the storm began. Craig lunged fast and aggressive, a textbook right jab into a sweep. But Imani slipped beneath it with the calm of a tide rolling out. She flowed, not fought. Redirected, not resisted. Craig grunted in frustration as she turned his momentum against him again and again. You scared, Reed? He hissed. She didn't answer. She spun low and swept his leg. He staggered, recovered, then charged, raw power, blind fury. She caught him mid-thrust and pivoted, twisting his arm into a lock and flipping him over her shoulder in one clean, beautiful arc. He hit the mat with a grunt and a curse. Get up, she said coldly. Craig snarled, scrambled to his feet, and this time ignored all pretense of rules. He struck toward her jaw with a closed fist. Imani ducked, sidestepped, and slammed her palm into his sternum. The wind left his lungs. He dropped to one knee. Gasping then, she whispered it. So, still want to choke someone for fun. His face, flushed, with rage, with shame. You think this makes you better? No, she said. Being better is never what this was about. It's about never becoming you. Craig groaned, stumbled to his feet. I'll sue you again. You'll lose, Troy called out firmly. We have it all on camera, and you stepped on the mat willingly. Craig's eyes flickered around the room, seeing for the first time how everyone was staring at him, not with admiration, but disgust. He stormed out, pushing the door so hard it banged against the wall. Imani stood still, her breath steady now. Naomi walked up, eyes wide. That was the best thing I've ever seen in my life. Sensei Troy nodded. You held back. I had. To Imani said, otherwise I'd be just like him. Then she looked around the room at her students, her dojo, her new home, and finally allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in years, safe. The next morning, Imani stood by her locker in silence. Her GI was folded. Her fingers still trembled a little, not from fear, not even from adrenaline, but from memory, what she did to Craig. What she could have done if she hadn't held back haunted her more than the fight itself. That part of her, the warrior that used to live only for pain, was stirring again, and she didn't like it. Imani, Naomi's voice broke through the fog. She was holding her phone, her face pale. You need to see this. Imani took the phone. The screen played a video, yesterday's match. A tight shot of her flipping Craig over her shoulder. A dozen slow-motion edits, dramatic music, bold captions. Black female karate instructor destroys man in karate match. Watch her humiliate him in front of a crowd. Is this empowerment or abuse? The comments were worse. This is why women don't belong in combat sports. Imagine if the roles were reversed. Jail, typical angry black woman. Moment, disgusting. Imani's jaw tightened. Who posted this? Naomi bit her lip. Some MMA reaction guy. He pulled it from our dojo's security cam, upload, ... But someone leaked it to him first. Imani already knew who Craig. Check his page, Imani said. Naomi clicked the name. There it was, another video. A tell-all interview. Craig sat on a podcast set, fake sad expression, bruises still faint on his face. I just wanted to reconnect, he was saying. But she was waiting to humiliate me. Honestly, I'm scared for other men training under someone like that. The host nodded solemnly. That's not how martial arts should be. She used her trauma like a weapon. The clip ended. Naomi stared at Imani. You going to respond? Imani shook her head. That's what he wants. Noise, rage, to drag me down to his level. But your reputation doesn't come from strangers on the internet, she said calmly. It comes from here, from this floor, from you. Naomi exhaled. You always say the most cinematic stuff when I need it. Imani smiled faintly. Comes from watching too many action movies as a kid. Just then, Sensei Troy walked in. I saw the video, he said without preamble. The board's furious. Not at you, at Craig. They're launching a formal complaint against him and his affiliate gym. Imani blinked. That'll follow him everywhere. That's the point, Troy said. But there's more. He handed her a letter. Temporary suspension from assistant instructor duties, pending full review of unsanctioned sparring match, concerns about student safety and optics. IMANI, single quotes as hand clenched the page. You're suspending me. Troy's face was grim. They are. Not me, I fought it. But the board's worried about PR. Sponsors, parent complaints. Naomi exploded. She's the reason we have students. Imani raised a hand. It's okay. No, it's not. Naomi shouted. They're punishing you because you fought back. Imani looked at Troy. How long? 2 weeks. Maybe more if Craig files anything legal. She nodded slowly. Then I'll wait. Naomi stared at her. You're really just going to accept this? Imani's voice was quiet. For now. That night her apartment felt colder. She stood in front of the mirror, eyes studying herself. The woman staring back wasn't the same Imani from a year ago. She was stronger, calmer, but still alone, or so she thought. A knock on her door. Then another. When she opened it, half the dojo stood in the hallway. Naomi, 3 teen students. A mom, Sensei Troy, even a shy 10-year-old holding a box of cookies. What's all this? Imani asked. Stunned, Naomi held up her phone. We made our video. She played it. Clips of Imani, teaching, coaching, laughing, helping a scared student. Through her first board break, sparring lightly with kids, hugging a crying student after class. Then voices. She's the reason I come here. She taught me how to stand tall. She helped me believe I'm not broken. Imani Reed saved my life. The final frame said, "This is our sensei." Tears pricked Imani's eyes. Troy smiled. We already posted it. It's going viral. Our way, Naomi stepped forward. Craig fights with lies. We fight with truth, and we've got a black belt in that. Imani laughed through her tears. You sound like me now. Yeah, Naomi smirked. I am your shadow, remember. Imani looked around at the faces young, old, brown, black, scared. Strong and felt something settle in her chest. She wasn't fighting alone anymore, and that changed everything. The wind carried a strange chill that Friday evening. Imani had just left the community dojo after cleaning out her locker. Though Sensei Troy and Naomi had made her feel supported. The suspension still sat on her shoulders like a silent weight. She zipped up her hoodie and stepped into the nearly empty parking lot. Imani. The voice rang out too close. She turned fast. Craig stood 10 feet away, leaning on her car like he belonged there. Hair slicked back, gym bag slung over his shoulder, sunglasses on even though the sun had already dipped behind the trees. Jaw tensed. What do you want? Craig pushed off the car slowly, smirking. Just talk. No cameras, no dojo, no audience. I don't trust you. He put both hands up. Fine, you win. But you embarrassed me. Ruined my reputation. So, I'm offering a solution. Imani didn't move. You mean a threat? A deal, he said smoothly. We have one more match. Off the books. Just us. No rules. You win, I disappear. I win, you apologize publicly. Admit you went too far. She laughed, low and bitter. You want me to fix your ego? Craig stepped closer. I want to prove it wasn't luck. That I'm better. That a real fighter, not some street-brawling, pity project princess does. To teach, Imani's eyes narrowed. Meet me in that alley behind the storage yard. 10 p.m. Craig's face lit up with something between arrogance and relief. You got it. He walked off, whistling. She stood there, still as stone. This wasn't for Craig anymore. This was for closure. And if he wanted pain, he'd finally understand what hers felt like. The alley behind the storage yard was exactly how she remembered it. Cracked pavement, graffiti-stained brick, a single flickering floodlight buzzing overhead. The same place where she used to shadowbox when she was 16, fists raw, rage boiling under her skin. She arrived early, let the silence settle, let her mind go blank. 10 minutes later, footsteps echoed. Craig stepped into the alley, but he wasn't alone. 3 other men followed. Imani exhaled slowly. That's not a match. That's an ambush. Craig grinned. What? You thought this was honor? This isn't. The movies, sweetheart. This is revenge. One of the men pulled a phone out. We're live streaming this. Let everyone see how the Karate Queen gets humbled. Imani's stance shifted, feet light, hands calm. You really needed backup for one woman, Craig sneered. You're not just any woman. You're you. And I hate everything you represent. The first guy lunged. I pivoted, grabbing his jacket, using his momentum to flip him into a stack of crates. The second man came at her with a steel pipe. She ducked low, kicked his knee inward, and swept his legs from under him. Third guy hesitated. Imani gave him one look. He dropped his phone and ran. Craig snarled. They were just distractions. He dropped his bag, stepped forward in a fighting stance. But this time he wasn't smiling. You ready? He asked. Imani didn't answer. She just moved. Their fists clashed in the air. Elbows, knees, sharp strikes. This wasn't dojo form, it was street fight rhythm, raw and real. Craig tried to rush her, but she sidestepped and struck the back of his knee. He stumbled. She followed with a punch to his ribs, but he caught her arm and slammed her against the wall. You're strong, he growled, but I'm still bigger. She gasped for air, then grinned, and I'm still smarter. She slammed her elbow into his jaw and broke free. Craig staggered, blood on his lip now, but he was laughing. Finally, that's what I wanted. Show me the demon under that perfect mask. Imani's voice was low, controlled. I'm not fighting you anymore, Craig. I'm ending you. She feinted left, then spun into a sweeping kick that took him down hard. Before he could move, she straddled his chest, her arm round his throat knot, choking. Just holding him there. His eyes widened. He remembered, this time it was her hand, around his neck. But she didn't squeeze. Instead, she leaned in and whispered, You thought I was dangerous before. You have no idea what restraint looks like. She let go. Craig coughed, gasped, rolled away shaking. I'll press charges, he muttered, crawling backward. Imani stood tall. Go ahead. I've got 12 witnesses, 3 broken phones, and a live stream of your little ambush. He froze. She turned, walking away. You came here to break me, Craig, she said over her shoulder. But all you did was prove why I fight. For women like me, girls like I was. The ones nobody protects. The ones who rise anyway. Craig didn't speak, just lay there in the shadows. Defeated, Imani walked into the night. She wasn't just a fighter anymore, she was a reckoning. The video hit the internet like wildfire. Someone had recovered the dropped phone from the alley, cropped and captioned it. Black woman destroys black belt, who tried to humiliate her. Full footage. Within hours, it had over 2 million views. By sunrise, reporters stood outside the dojo, camera vans and microphones like vultures in the parking lot. Headlines flashed across every screen. Community dojo, shame, male instructor accused of targeting black female student, Karate Queen or vigilante. Heated debate around street fight hero. Was it self-defense or just revenge? Inside, the dojo didn't feel like a sanctuary anymore. Sensei Troy stood by the office window, arms folded, jaw tight. Naomi sat in the corner, her phone buzzing non-stop. Imani walked in like she always had, head high, shoes off at the door. But this time, every step echoed louder. Troy didn't look up. We're in trouble, Naomi sighed. The board's already called 3 times. They want you out, Troy. They want her banned. For what? Imani asked, calmly. Defending myself. They say it violates the spirit of the dojo. Naomi said bitterly. They say it was unbecoming of a woman training under this school's philosophy. Imani let out a dry laugh. So it's not about what Craig did. It's about how I survived it. Troy finally turned around. Imani, I believe you. But this is bigger than just us now. Lawyers are sniffing around. Sponsors, the city council. She nodded. Good. Let them come. He blinked. That's not what I meant. I know, she said softly. But I'm not hiding anymore. Naomi stood up, her eyes fierce. We need a press conference. Set the record straight. Troy rubbed his temples. I don't do press. Imani tilted her head. Then maybe I should. 2 days later, Imani stood behind a mic outside the dojo gates. She wore her gia white, spotless, belt wrapped with practiced hands. Her hair pulled back in braids, her face calm and unflinching. Cameras flashed. Reporters shoved forward. One man barked, Imani, did you lure Craig into that alley on purpose? She stared at him. I responded to a challenge. He brought 3 men with weapons. You tell me what that sounds like. A woman in a green blazer raised her hand. Do you feel violence is ever justified outside the dojo? Imani looked her straight in the eyes. I believe in peace, but peace without justice is just silence. I didn't go looking for revenge. I defended myself and I did it without becoming the monster he tried to make me. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A girl in the back, maybe 15, maybe younger, lifted a homemade sign. We believe, Imani. Imani's voice wavered just once. I've trained here since I was 12. I swept floors. I studied forms. I worked harder than anyone. But no matter how perfect I was never seen as equal. Not to him, not to the board, not to people who think women like me should just stay silent. She paused. But I'm not silent anymore. I'm loud, I'm visible, and I'm not sorry. A silence fell. Then someone clapped, then another, until the whole crowd was applauding. Later that night, the dojo board called a private meeting. Imani wasn't invited, but Troy was. He sat at the long table in his old brown suit, staring down 5 men and 1 woman who all looked uncomfortable and tight-lipped. Board Chair Daniels started. Sensei Troy, this dojo's reputation is at stake. That girl's behavior, that woman, Troy interrupted. Her name is Imani. Daniels blinked. Yes, her. She's become a political symbol. She's become the best student this dojo ever produced, Troy said, voice sharp now. Better than Craig. Better than half your sons who quit. After a year, the only woman on the board leaned forward. With respect, she turned a dojo matter into a public spectacle. That's not discipline. Troy looked at them all. You ever had to teach someone who walked 3 miles to class every day because she couldn't afford bus fare? You ever seen a black girl step onto the mat and get laughed at not for her technique, but just for showing up? No one answered. Troy stood. She didn't make this a spectacle. You did, when you ignored what Craig did. When you let it slide because he knew the kata better. When you made her feel like surviving was the real offense. He gathered his papers. I won't ask you to keep her, but I'll tell you this. If she goes, I go. Daniels stood, flustered. You'd leave over her. Troy's eyes were clear. I'd stay for her, but I won't stay for you. And with that, he walked out. Outside, Naomi was waiting in the car. She grinned when she saw his face. "Let me guess, you just quit." Troy chuckled. "No, I just told the truth." Naomi started the engine. "So what now?" Troy looked out at the stars. "Now we build something new. A place where girls like Imani don't have to fight twice as hard just to be seen." Naomi nodded. "And what'll we call it?" Troy smiled. "How about Reckoning Dojo?" It was barely a week after the press conference when the threats began. Anonymous calls to the new dojo space. Broken glass on Troy's windshield. A brick thrown through the front window the night after they hung their new sign, Reckoning Dojo Imani. Sat on the mat that evening, running slow breathing drills while Naomi patched the window with plywood. The air smelled like fresh paint and tension. Naomi looked up. "This ain't just hate mail anymore. This is a warning." "I know," Imani said softly. Troy locked the door behind him. "We're being watched." He tossed a letter onto the floor. It had no return address, no signature, just 5 words scrawled in messy block letters. "You should have stayed down." Imani studied it for a long time. Then she stood. "No," she said. "I should have fought harder." That night, Naomi pulled out her laptop. Her fingers moved fast, scanning forums, underground message boards, the dark corners of the web. "Here," she said, eyes wide. "Craig's been posting, not just on socials. He's part of a groupsome kind of underground martial arts circle. Calls themselves the Black Circle." Troy raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like something out of a comic book." "It's real," Naomi said. "They run illegal tournaments, street fights, no rules, no honor. And Craig's name is at the top of the roster." Imani leaned over. "When's the next one?" Naomi hesitated. "You're not going. I need to know what we're really up against." Troy was silent for a beat. Then he said, "Fine, we all go." The next night, they followed an address scrawled in a post from the forum. It was an abandoned shipping warehouse on the edge of the city. Rusted metal gates, flickering floodlights. Men in hoodies stood at the entrance, checking names. Naomi handed over a fake ID. Inside, the place smelled like sweat, blood, and diesel fuel. A square pit had been marked on the concrete floor. Chains hung from the ceiling. No ropes, no rules. Just the sound of fists hitting skin and people cheering like animals. Craig wasn't fighting, but he was there in a long black coat, sunglasses even in the dark, his smirk as ugly as Imani remembered. He stood beside a towering man with scars across his jaw and a shaved head like a wrecking ball. "That's Jericho," Naomi whispered. "XMMA, banned in 3 states. Fights dirty." Imani watched as Craig leaned in and whispered something to him, and Jericho looked directly at her. They didn't wait for introductions. Jericho leapt the barrier. Imani stepped into the circle before the crowd even realized what was happening. "You're sure about this?" Naomi hissed. Imani nodded. "I won't run anymore." Jericho cracked his knuckles. "Heard you like choking out black belts. Let's see how you do with someone who eats belts for breakfast." Imani said nothing. They circled each other. Jericho lunged. Fast, brutal. But she was faster. She ducked, twisted, sent him stumbling into the crate stack behind her. The crowd roared. He came again, left jab, right elbow, knee strike to her ribs. Pain bloomed in her side. But she didn't fall. She pivoted, dropped. Loan struck his ankle with a sweeping kick. He crashed to the ground. Before he could rise, she was on him, A chokehold, yes, but not to humiliate. To stop him cold. Her arms were steel. Her breath steady, his eyes wide, and then tap, tap, tap. He surrendered. The crowd froze. Imani released him and stepped back. Craig stepped forward, red-faced. You think you're some kind of hero? He spat. No, she said. I'm just done being your victim. They barely made it out. Craig's crew surrounded them as they exited. One guy grabbed Naomi's shoulder, another shoved Troy, but then a deep voice growled from the shadows. Enough. A figure stepped into the floodlight. A tall man, black, muscular, bald, with a white scar down his temple. The crowd parted like water. He said, I've been watching you, girl. Imani squared her shoulders. And you don't fight angry. You fight smart. That's rare in a place like this. Troy stepped in. And who are you? The man smiled. Name's Marcus. I used to run with Craig, before I realized he's just another bully hiding behind belts. Naomi narrowed her eyes. Why now? Because it's time someone rewrote the rules. That's what she's doing. And I want in. Imani didn't flinch. Then help us shut this place down. Marcus grinned. Thought you'd never ask. The next day, the media storm exploded again. But this time, it wasn't just scandal, it was truth. Naomi leaked the footage from the fight. The illegal circle, the threats, everything. The headline read, Underground Fight Ring, Exposed Woman Who Took Down Her Abuser, Now Taking On the Whole System. Imani was everywhere, interviews, podcasts, even a scholarship offer from a university that never looked her way before. But she stayed humble, stayed grounded, because she knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Craig was still out there, and she had one. Final fight left. The day of the televised match arrived like thunder on the horizon. Not a street fight, not another illegal pit. This was the real deal. A sanctioned charity tournament, nationally streamed, with sponsors, spectators, and a panel of judges. The public wanted closure. They wanted spectacle. They wanted to see Imani and Craig face off. Legally, finally, Imani didn't want the fame, but she needed the justice. At 7 p.m. sharp, the lights dimmed in the arena. A voice echoed through the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, ... The final match of the night. Craig the Cobra Manson versus Imani Wade. Thunderous applause. Then silence as two figures walked from opposite ends of the mat. Craig, grinning like a man who thought he'd already won. His GI was pure black, embroidered with gold letters that read nitrogen monoxide. Mercy Imani wore no embroidery, no slogan. Just a plain white GI, tightly tied, hair braided back. Her eyes locked ahead. Naomi stood in her corner. Troy gave her a subtle nod from the stands. Marcus stood in the shadows, arms crossed. Craig smirked. Didn't think you'd actually show. Thought you'd run like last time. Imani's voice was quiet, firm. I didn't run. You cheated. This time, there's no place for cowards to hide. The bell rang. Craig struck first, aggressive, a spinning back fist aimed for her jaw. Imani ducked, twisted his arm, and pivoted into a throw that slammed him onto the mat. The crowd erupted. He bounced up quickly, eyes flashing with rage. Lucky shot. She said nothing. This wasn't luck. This was earned. Craig rushed again, this time sweeping low. He caught her ankle. She stumbled, rolled, popped up, and spun with a back kick to his ribs. Thud, he staggered, gasping. Not so fun when someone fights back, huh? Naomi shouted from the corner. Craig's face twisted. You want to play dirty? He hissed. He lunged again. This time, his knee connected with her thigh, sending a sharp pain shooting through her leg. But Imani didn't fall. She stepped back, absorbed it, then moved into her stance sharp, fluid, graceful. Craig overcommitted. He came at her in a blind flurry, fists flying wildly. That's when Imani saw it. His anger, his imbalance. She ducked low, swept his back foot, then rose with a flawless elbow to his jaw. Cracked. Craig dropped. The arena froze. The referee started the count. Craig rolled, groaned, staggered up at 9. But now his confidence was gone. The second round began. Craig wasn't smiling anymore. His eyes were wild, his movements frantic. Imani stayed calm, focused. Every step was deliberate. Every strike was earned. He came in for a grapple. She locked him. He tried to throw her. She reversed. He screamed in frustration. You think this makes you better than me? He shouted. No, she said. This makes me free. The crowd cheered. Naomi wept in the corner. But Craig wasn't done. He grabbed her GI collar, yanked her toward him, and head-butted her square in the nose. Gasps from the audience. The referee jumped in a legal contact. 1-point deduction. Blood dripped from Imani's nose. She wiped it calmly and nodded to continue. Craig looked shaken. You should have stayed quiet. Imani looked him dead in the eyes. You should have stayed decent. Final round. Craig was slower now, tired, breathing hard. Imani, bruised but unshaken, moved like water. He swung again, desperate. She ducked, spun, and swept his leg from under him. He hit the mat hard. Before he could rise, she stepped back, gave him space. The crowd murmured. Craig looked up, confused. Why didn't you finish me? Because I'm not like you, she said. I don't hurt people for fun, he sneered. You're weak. She turned away. Then why are you the one on the floor? She said. Silence. Then the referee lifted her hand. The match was over. Imani Wade had won. Reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Imani stood still as the crowd chanted her name. But in her heart, the victory wasn't about a title. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming her voice, her body, her truth. Craig was escorted out. His reputation in shambles. His sponsors pulled. Investigations reopened. Naomi ran to Imani, hugging her tightly. I'm proud of you, she whispered. IMAN. I smiled. I'm proud of us. Marcus joined them, nodding. You've changed everything, Troy added. You didn't just win a match tonight. You started a movement. And in the center of the ring, with the stadium lights above her and the future wide open, Imani closed her eyes and breathed deep. She wasn't broken. She was reborn. 3 weeks had passed since the match that changed everything. Craig, the Cobra Manson, had vanished from the public eye. His academy was shut down. Several former students came forward with their own stories. Bullying, intimidation, even physical abuse. Lawsuits followed. Sponsors distanced themselves. His reputation, once towering, lay in ruins. But this wasn't about Craig anymore. This was about Imani Wade. She sat in front of a classroom of teenage girls in an after-school gym. Their faces were brown, black, freckled, braided, shy, curious, and every single one of them was watching her like she was more than a fighter, like she was a story they wanted to be part of. You don't win strength, Imani told them. You build it, and you build it even faster when the world tells you not to. She wasn't wearing a GI today. just jeans and a t-shirt that read, "Respect is earned." But she held herself like a warrior. Naomi sat in the back, arms crossed, quietly proud. Troy leaned in the doorway. Even Marcus had come, dressed in his usual black leather jacket, head bowed like a ghost who finally found peace. I was scared. Once too, Imani continued. I trained for the wrong reasons. To be liked, to prove myself, to not be small. A hush fell, but fighting's not about violence, it's about boundaries. You don't owe anyone your silence. One girl raised her hand. What if you're not strong yet? Imani smiled. Then you're exactly where you're supposed to be. The girls clapped. Some nodded. A few teared up. For the first time, Imani felt the ripple of change. It didn't crash like fists. It landed soft like a seed in soil. After the session, Naomi whispered, "You're building something. These girls, ... they believe in you." "I believe in them too," Imani replied. "It's time we stop surviving and start teaching." That night, Imani sat alone on the rooftop of her building, legs folded, wrapped in a thick hoodie. The city sparkled beneath her, too loud to sleep, too wide to contain. She heard footsteps behind her. "Thought I'd find you up here," Troy said. She didn't look back. "Didn't you say rooftops weren't your thing?" "I lied," he said. Settling beside her, they sat in silence. Just the hum of traffic and distant sirens. Then she asked, "You think I did the right thing? Exposing Craig like that?" Troy turned to her. "You didn't just expose Craig, you exposed a system. You showed everyone that strength and decency aren't opposites." Imani exhaled. "I still have nightmares. Of his hands, of the way I froze. Even now, sometimes I can't breathe." Troy reached out, gently took her hand. "You didn't freeze," he said. "You fought back. And even when you were on the floor, you still got up." Imani blinked hard. A tear escaped. Then a buzzing sound. Troy pulled out his phone. "What is it?" He read the message aloud. "You need to see this. Turn on the news." Imani sat up. A chill hit her. They ran inside. Turned on the TV. The headlines scrolled. Breaking: Craig Manson arrested after illegal underground fighting ring. Raided in Atlanta. Imani's stomach dropped. No... They played the footage. Grainy cell phone video. Police sirens. A basement full of men in yes. And they're being dragged in cuffs. Bloodied and swearing was Craig. He looked nothing like the arrogant fighter they remembered. He looked feral. Troy turned to her. He was still fighting. Still hurting people. Imani shook her head slowly. "I thought I ended this." "You ended his image," Troy said. "But monsters like him, they don't just disappear. They adapt. They rot deeper." She watched the screen, and then she saw it. One of the fighters being pulled from the crowd. A young man, barely 17, bruised, dazed, terrified, his GI marked, with the same gold stitching as Craig's old academy. Imani's eyes widened. He's recruiting kids. Troy's jaw tightened. "We can't let this grow again." The next morning, Imani called Marcus. "I need your help." "What kind?" Marcus asked. "The kind where we go to Atlanta and shut this down ourselves." Marcus was silent. Then, "Say less. I've got people there." Naomi joined. So did Troy. Even some of Imani's former students offered to help. They flew out to... Days later, Atlanta was different from home. Wetter air, older buildings, sharper corners. But darkness knew no geography. Marcus led them to the source, a half-burned warehouse on the outskirts, still buzzing with rumors of Craig's old students regrouping inside. They found mats, bloodstains, scattered black belts, and a wall of PHOTOGRAPHS, BOYs, girls, all young, all wearing Craig's insignia. Imani clenched her fists. He turned trauma into tradition. They found names, addresses, parents who thought their kids were just at practice. She looked at Troy. We have to reach them first. What followed wasn't a fight, not in the physical sense. It was speeches at schools, letters to principals, late-night visits to families. Imani sat with kids who flinched when she raised her hand. She trained them gently. She taught them trust. Some ran, some cried, but some stayed. One girl, 14, whispered, "They told me I was too soft to fight." That pain was part of becoming strong. Imani looked her in the eyes. Pain is not a teacher. It's a warning. You don't learn by bleeding. The girl hugged her. That's when Imani cried. Weeks passed. Craig remained behind bars, facing charges for assault, corruption of minors, and organized violence. But the ripple he left had to be cleansed slowly. Imani started a new program, The Quiet Fist, a self-defense and confidence mentorship for Black girls and marginalized youth. Her first class filled in 2 days. They trained differently. No yelling, no humiliation, just precision, presence, and power. She ended every session with the same words. Strength isn't what you show, it's what you protect. One evening, months later, as the sun set gold across the skyline, Naomi stood beside Imani outside the new studio. "You really did it," Naomi said softly. "You rewrote the whole book." Imani looked around. A line of kids waited at the door. Some wore GIs, some just wore t-shirts, but all of them stood tall. "I didn't rewrite it," she said. "I just tore out the rotten pages." From the corner, Troy leaned on his motorcycle, helmet in hand. "You ready for the next fight?" Imani smiled. "I'm always ready." And as the doors opened, as the children poured in, as the mats warmed, beneath bare feet, one thing was clear: she didn't just survive Craig. She outlived him, and in doing so, she became the story.